Okay, so get this. You want to know a generative AI, like right now. Well, good news. We got a hold of a syllabus for an 8-week course, and it is packed.
Yeah, really packed. Generative AI is seriously blowing up right now.
Mm.
And this deep dive, it's your like a cheat sheet to figure out why all of this matters.
Oh, and get this. One of the things you'll learn is how they use this stuff to make those, like, crazy realistic video game worlds.
Yeah, it's wild.
Okay, so looking at this thing,
Yeah.
8 weeks, right,
Mhm.
in one conversation.
A lot to cover.
Challenge accepted. But first, what does this course even say it'll teach you?
Well, it's about, really getting generative AI, like all the way how the models even work
Uh-huh.
to like actually making and training them yourself.
Oh, so it's more than just, messing around with the tools, right? Like, you really get to see how it works.
Totally. Imagine you can make an image, right? But then you can tweak the actual model to like, I don't know, make it in a certain style or even make up a whole new one.
Whoa. Okay, that's power. So what else, like, if you finish this course, what can you actually do?
Well, one thing is you really learn all about probability distributions
Okay.
and sampling methods. Think of it as you're learning the AI language.
Okay.
It's how it makes data
Right.
and how to like control that whole process. You can even, make totally fake data to train other AIs
Wow.
or even design new medicines.
No way. So it's basically like the AI is learning to, like, be creative, just like humans.
Yeah, even better sometimes.
This is getting kind of freaky. Okay, but seriously, does this course actually teach you how to build these models
Yeah.
from scratch?
100%. You'll learn to build, train, fine-tune, you name it, all kinds of models,
Keep going.
VAEs, transformers, like, building a robot. You got to know every part and how they all fit together.
That's like next level, right?
Yeah.
Compared to just using some app or whatever.
Yeah.
So you could make, like, anything then. Photos, music.
Imagine like an AI that designs a whole marketing campaign just for you.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah. But that's the impact, right? It's real world stuff.
Okay, let's go through this syllabus week by week. Week 1 looks pretty basic. Intro to generative AI and exploratory data analysis.
It is like you got to learn the ABCs before you can, write a book. So basics, history of all this,
Right.
how to really look at data to see the patterns in it.
Okay, week 2, though, straight into the deep end. JANs. Yeah. Sounds like a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? Generative adversarial networks, that's what it stands for. It's like you have two AIs
Yeah.
and they're playing a game. One tries to make like realistic data and the
Yeah.
other one tries to spot the fakes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And by doing that, they both get better.
So it's like an AI arms race.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how they make those CGI people in video games and movies look so real.
Oh, that's why they look so good. Okay, week 3, VAEs. What are those about?
So VAEs, variational autoencoders, they're also generative models. But instead of like fighting, they're more about understanding how data is structured. Imagine you have like a 3D object. It's really complex.
Yeah.
The VAE, it figures out a way to describe it, like with coordinates.
So like a blueprint of the data.
Yeah.
But simpler.
You got it. They're great for, when you want to make a file smaller but not lose the important stuff.
Right.
They even use them to like invent new medicines.
Whoa, okay. Week 4, transformers and language models.
Yeah.
That's the writing stuff, right?
You know it. Transformers, they're like really good at understanding how words work together in a sentence. You've probably heard of GPT, right?
Yeah.
Big language models. They can write all kinds of stuff, like even code.
Oh, yeah, those AI poems. Kind of creepy, but also cool.
Yeah. So like the AI can speak and understand our language.
Crazy.
Right. Imagine using that to like sum up a whole research paper or translate languages.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so weeks 5, 6, 7, 8, all about a capstone project.
Yep. This is where it all comes together.
Sounds intense.
It is. But the syllabus helps you through it. First, you got to make a proposal
Okay.
for your project. What you're going to do, what data, what kind of model.
Like a mini research project.
Totally. Then comes getting the data, cleaning it up, all that. Takes a while, but you got to do it,
Makes sense. If you put garbage in, you get garbage out.
Exactly. Then comes the fun part, build the model.
Okay.
Could be anything, GN, VAE, transformer, whatever works best.
So that's where you actually use everything you've learned.
Yeah. But you got to analyze it as you go, make sure it's working right, change things up if you need to.
Right. You're always checking to see if it's on track.
Yep. And at the very end, you present your project to everyone, show off what you found, what you learned, all that.
Whoa. This course is really in-depth.
It is. You go from 0 to hero in 8 weeks.
But, like, how do we know if the AI is making good stuff? How do you even judge that?
That's where it gets really interesting. There's this thing called generative model analysis, GMA. It's all about checking the quality, how creative it is, all of that, like quality control for AI.
That makes sense.
So yeah, we'll be looking at all the ways to do that over the next few weeks. You got to build AI that's good and that's actually helpful.
Okay, that's a really great overview of the course.
Yeah.
Now, let's get into the details, starting with week 1. What kind of stuff do you do with data analysis?
Okay, welcome back. Now we get to really dig into this generative AI stuff.
Yeah, let's get to the code. We talked about the theory and everything, but what are you actually doing in this course every week?
Week 1, it starts you off with this thing called exploratory data analysis,
Okay.
EDA. You'll be working with real data sets right away.
Oh, wow. So, like, real stuff, not just made-up examples.
Yeah, exactly. You learn how to, make the data visual, analyze it, all that.
Right.
That's super important for like any data science work, but especially for generative AI.
The syllabus mentions working with both real-world data sets and images made by GANs.
That's the cool part. You compare the real data with what like a basic AI makes. Then you start to see how these models learn and also, where they kind of mess up. It's like, I don't know, trying to tell the difference between a painting by like a famous artist and a beginner.
So we're becoming AI art critics right off the bat.
Exactly.
Okay, week 2, we're making our first GAN.
This is where it gets good.
Right.
The syllabus takes you through how a GAN is built, the generator and discriminator thing we talked about.
Right.
And then you actually code a GAN, a simple one, but still for making images.
Wait, from scratch?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot more hands-on than I thought.
That's what's so cool about this course. It's not just ideas. It's like doing it. And of course, more ED. You got to compare the images your Jan makes to the real ones. See how they're done, how well it's doing, all that.
So you're constantly getting feedback.
Yeah.
That's got to make you learn faster, right?
Perhaps.
Seeing what your code actually does.
Totally. Like understanding the idea is one thing, but when you build it and change it yourself and see how different things affect the result, that's how you really learn.
Okay, week 3. VAEs. What do you do there?
Same kind of thing. Implement a VAE for making images and also reconstructing data.
Okay.
But now you're focusing on that latent space thing, making it visual, seeing how it changes the output.
I got to admit, that latent space, it's still kind of confusing. Is there like a real world example to help me get it?
Okay, so imagine you're describing like someone's face, right?
Yeah.
Instead of every little pixel, you talk about the features, like their eye shape, nose size, hair color.
Okay.
That's kind of what the latent space is like, that feature map.
Oh, okay.
The VAE, it learns how to like take data, like faces, and turn it into those features, and then it can turn it back into images.
So you can change those features and get different versions of the face.
You got it. Make them smile, change their hair, make them older, all by messing with those latent things.
That's pretty wild.
It shows you how the VAE like understands and makes the data.
Okay, I'm starting to get the VAEs now. What about week 4? The transformers and language models. Are we writing poems with GPT now?
No poems, but you do get to fine-tune a GPT model that's already trained to make it write text.
Okay.
That means like it already knows the basics of language,
Right.
and you're making it better for a specific job or a style of writing.
So like, could you train it on, I don't know, legal documents?
Yeah.
And then have it write contracts?
Exactly. Or give it a bunch of old speeches and have it write one like Abraham Lincoln.
That's cool.
Right. There's so many things you can do. And when you actually do this stuff, you see how powerful these models are.
Okay, week 5, it changes a bit. Real world stuff and like the ethics of it all. Do you still do any hands-on work there?
Of course. You analyze case studies of how generative AI is being used out there in the real world.
So less coding and more thinking about like the impact of all this.
Right. It's about understanding how people are using it, the problems they're having, and how it can really solve real problems.
Makes sense. And then it's capstone time. Week 6 to 8, the big projects.
Yep. You put everything together.
The syllabus like walks you through it all, right?
Yeah, it's all laid out. First, you got to come up with your project idea.
Right.
What you want to make, what data you'll need, all that.
Like writing a grant proposal.
Exactly. Then collecting the data and getting it ready, that takes a while, but it's super important.
Right. Got to have good data.
Then comes the fun part, building the model. Could be a Jan, VAE, transformer, whatever fits.
This is where all that practice pays off.
It does, but you have to be analyzing it as you go, making sure it's doing what you want, changing things if you need to.
Okay, so you're always watching it, making sure it's on track.
Exactly. And finally, you get to present your whole project, show everyone your results, what you learned, everything.
This course is seriously in-depth.
It is. It gives you the foundation and the skills to keep learning, even as the field changes,
Before we finish this part, I want to go into some of the specifics. Like, when you build a Jan from scratch, what does that actually look like? What are the steps? All right, so let's get back to those Jans. Like, when you actually build one yourself, what are the steps?
It's like you're building this two-sided machine.
Okay.
The generator's on one side, the discriminator's on the other.
Right.
The generator's job is to make data, could be anything, but let's say pictures.
Okay.
And they should look like the real data it learned from.
So if you trained it on cat pictures,
yeah,
it would try to make its own?
Exactly. Now, the discriminator, it's like a detective, right? It looks at the real pictures and the ones the generator made and tries to tell which ones are real and which are fake.
So they're kind of fighting, right?
Yeah.
The generator trying to trick the discriminator.
Yeah.
And the discriminator's getting better at spotting the fakes.
Yeah. That's how it works. And as they do that, both of them get better. The generator makes more realistic stuff, and the discriminator gets tougher to fool.
It's like, I don't know, a game of chess or something.
Yeah, like that.
Okay, but like, how do you actually code that?
First, you got to decide how those networks are going to be set up.
Oh.
Like what kind of layers they have, how many neurons, all that.
So this is where that stuff from week 1 comes in, about neural networks.
Exactly. Then you got to feed it a ton of data, like a lot. If it's cat pictures, you need thousands, maybe millions of them.
The more data, the better it gets at making new ones.
Right. And the training, it's like you do it in steps. You give it real images and fake ones.
Yeah.
The discriminator says what it thinks.
Okay.
And then both networks, they adjust themselves based on that. And you do this over and over.
Like millions of times.
Yep, until they're both really good.
So you're basically setting up this training ground for your AI.
Yeah.
Letting it learn on its own.
Exactly.
Okay, what about VAEs? Is that like building a JANA?
Not really. JNs, it's all about that fighting, remember?
Yeah.
VAEs, they're all about that compressed data thing, the latent space.
Right, like the recipe for a cookie.
Yep. The VAE, it figures out what's really important about a cookie, so it can make new ones with different flavors and stuff.
So when you're building one, you're making 2 networks, right?
Exactly. The encoder and the decoder.
Okay.
The encoder takes the data, like a picture, and squishes it down into that latent space, like getting rid of all the extra stuff.
It's like making the image smaller, but keeping the important parts.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Then the decoder, it takes that squished down version and tries to make the original picture again.
Right.
The goal is to make them as close as possible.
So it's learning to like capture what's important and then remake it.
You got it. And if you change the stuff in that latent space, you can change the picture that comes out. It's like having controls to change reality.
Okay, that makes sense. What about fine-tuning a language model like GPT? How do you do that?
Okay, imagine you have a chef, right? Really good chef, knows how to cook anything.
Okay.
But then you want to train him to be like the best Italian chef ever.
Okay, I get it.
That's what fine-tuning is like. You start with a model that's already learned a lot from tons of text. Then you train it on just the stuff you want it to be good at.
So if I wanted it to write screenplays, I'd give it a bunch of screenplays.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And during the fine-tuning, you're changing how the model works inside.
Okay.
So it gets really good at the new stuff.
So it's like specializing it.
Yep. And if you do it right, it can write some really amazing stuff, any style, any format.
This is all really cool. It's like you're not just using AI. You're really learning how it works, how to make it do what you want.
That's the whole point. Generative AI, it's powerful, but we got to be careful with it.
Right.
As we make these models better and better, we got to use them for good,
Well said. This whole deep dive has been awesome. We learned the basics, how to build these models, and like the future of all this.
And it's just the start, you know? AI is changing so fast.
Yeah.
Anyone who keeps learning, keeps asking questions, they're going to be the ones shaping this whole thing.
So to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into generative AI. We hope you learned a lot and that you're like excited about all this stuff now. It's going to be huge.